Today's July 29th, 2024. Current Bitcoin price is $66,724.
Welcome to the BitBite podcast, your source for news and information about Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency space. This podcast is meant for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not financial advice.
What's going on, Rick?
Oh, just watching the price of Bitcoin go down.
We hit
it had that momentum and then it's gone.
Yeah, we hit a high today of, I think we kissed 70.
Yeah.
And only kissed it, and then we had that sharp reversal, which that never bodes well. I mean, that means there's a lot of resistance up there at that $70,000 mark, right?
Right.
But
well, and it's to be expected, right?
Yeah.
70 is that huge psychological barrier.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's been kind of the ceiling for the most part recently, for the past 4 months.
Well, and I know we didn't talk about it prior, but I think some more of the Mt. Gox coins have been moving again too. So, I mean, I don't blame some of those people. They're probably, I still don't even know how much of that's going to actually hit the market in that way. And there's some other things that we're going to talk about that could have spooked the market a little bit, just because Bitcoin is so sentiment driven. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. First off, how are our theoretical purchases doing?
Okay, theoretical purchases. Okay, so assuming $3,000 back in October, and we could have bought 0.0885 Bitcoin. Well, that $3,000 is now at $5,905. So it was a lot closer to 6,000 than it is right now. It's, lost about $70 or so. And then if you bought $1,000 worth of Bitcoin right at the halving, which is like April 19th, you would have got 0.0156 Bitcoin. And right now, with the price at 66,724, you're at 1044. So you're still positive, just not doing spectacular.
Just not what it was once upon a time. And then we also got to look at the far side chart for the flows, because last time we recorded, I think we had said it was the 22nd, right?
Yes.
And so if you look at that, go ahead.
I was just going to say we didn't have the data for that date.
Yeah, because we did comment on the data from July 19th, where it was 427 million that day. And then the 22nd was 485 million that following Monday.
So, yeah, those are 2 good days in a row.
Yeah.
Dang near $1 billion. It's tapered off a fair bit since then, but...
Yeah, we've seen outflows basically from the 23rd on, from Grayscale. I can't say total outflows, but Grayscale, we've seen outflows going on there. And then we had a negative day on the 23rd. The 24th, we had 44 million inflow. 25th, we had 31.1. And same thing, it looks like on the 26th, we had 51.8. And right now it looks like it was a red day of 81.5. So,
well, they don't have IBITS numbers. That usually kind of lifts the tide a little bit.
Yeah, because I think at one point we had talked about how IBIT had not quite eclipsed Grayscale. And they have now, if you look at the totals down there.
Yeah.
The Grayscale outflows is 18 billion. And IBITS is now at 19 billion of inflows. So,
wow.
Yeah, they've eclipsed that since then. Yeah, and then there was a lot of stuff. We had talked last time about Trump giving a keynote speech at the Bitcoin conference. And we also had RFK there. There was, I think, did we mention that there was a rumor Kamala was going to be there too?
I didn't hear that rumor. No, we did not mention that.
Yeah, I had heard it, and then obviously it became nothing. But the interesting thing about that was I did sit down and I watched both their keynotes in full. And RFK's was like 51 minutes. Whereas Trump, I think, got up and spoke for about 38 minutes, somewhere in there. But RFK's, man, it was, he truly seems to grasp Bitcoin. When you listen to what he said, the There was a lot of stuff in there that he seemed to really just kind of capture what the ethos and the belief of Bitcoin is. And then Trump, and and I think you had said it, right? Like looking at the two side by side, it seems like RFK stole some of that thunder, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they had very similar plans, but RFK laid something out, and he was way more detailed and emphatic with it, whereas Trump was just doing everything in the weird Trumpian way. He just goes, Bitcoin's going to just explode. It's going to be the greatest price booms when I become elected.
Yeah.
It's just like, dude, that's not how it works.
No, yeah. Trump, I mean, I don't know how else, you nailed it on the head. It's the Trumpisms. I don't know how else to put it. It's just, he talks with such, I don't get it. But I mean, the other part of that though, too, is that RFK is like a career politician, right? He knows
RFK?
Yeah. RFK Jr.
I don't think he really had much of a foray into politics until somewhat recently. I think he was more of a lawyer.
Was he? I thought he was already in politics.
No, not really. I mean, I think he was politically active, but he wasn't actually running for anything.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah. He blew me away. So I brought up kind of their key side-by-sides, like some of what the big talking points were. And I just thought we'd go through them. So we'll go through RFK's first. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
So let me pull his up here. So one of the first things he touched on was economic integration. Kennedy discussed the integration of Bitcoin into the American economic system, emphasizing its potential to enhance economic stability and growth. One of the big things he touched on was inflation and the national debt with that.
Okay.
National security. He highlighted the importance of Bitcoin in strengthening national security through its decentralized nature. He talked about government commitment, expressed a full commitment to Bitcoin, promising daily government purchases of Bitcoin to build a strategic reserve. And that was an interesting one. According to what we know currently is that the United States government has about 19% of the world's gold reserves. And I mean, I don't know how legit that is or not, but
I don't know the last time Fort Knox was audited, but yeah,
that's kind of the information he's going off of. And RFK basically said that he wanted to make an equivalent amount in Bitcoin reserves for the United States government. So that would be 19% of the Bitcoin possible to be able to be purchased up.
That's not a small amount either.
No, that's not. That's a huge amount. Tax policy, he announced plans to sign an executive order that would make Bitcoin transactions unreportable and non-taxable, aiming to encourage its use and adoption.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that would be a huge win, right? Like if you didn't have to get taxed on any time, because it's stupid. Like if all you're doing is say you transfer Bitcoin from a cold wallet to Coinbase, like that shouldn't be a taxable transaction. Those are your wallets. And I don't think necessarily that it is, but as soon as you convert it, I think that's where, people would say one way or the other. However, go ahead.
Well, some people even say it's when you spend it and it's like whatever you bought your Bitcoin at and then what you spend it at, like you got to do taxes on that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that kind of muddies up the water and basically discourages people from using Bitcoin as money.
Yeah.
At least in America.
Yeah, absolutely. He proposed classifying the federal government seized Bitcoin as a strategic asset under the U.S. Treasury Department. And that's going to be an interesting point that we'll have to touch on here in a second. And then support and advocacy. His speech reflected his long-standing advocacy for Bitcoin and its role in promoting democracy and freedom. Now, two of the things I thought was really interesting was that he wanted to actually nominate, if he got elected, he said he wanted to nominate Michael Saylor as the Treasury Secretary. And then he wanted to put Michael Lowry in charge of strategic Bitcoin, basically like a Bitcoin czar. Which, for those of you that don't know Michael Lowry, he wrote a book called Soft War that actually got taken off bookshelves for a while. And I think there's a new one out there now in a paperback version that you can get. But
an highly edited version. Probably.
Highly edited version. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then, so now we'll take a look at Trump's, which, I mean, like you said, there was a bunch of Trumpisms. Trump said that he wants to proposed that the U.S. should retain all Bitcoin it currently holds and acquire more to create a strategic national Bitcoin stockpile. He emphasized pro-Bitcoin stance, promising to be pro-Bitcoin and pro-innovation. If reelected, and mentioned the firing of U.S. Securities and Exchange Commissioner Chairman Gary Gensler, which got a huge reaction from the crowd. And so I don't think he was expecting that. And then when he said it and the crowd went crazy, he's like, well, let me say it again. So he just repeated it. Critique of the current administration. Trump criticized the current administration's handling of the economy, particularly regarding inflation and its impact on the value of the dollar. Support for the crypto industry. He expressed the desire to make the U.S. the largest holder and miner of Bitcoin, projecting power and aiding the dollar with Bitcoin. Freedom and empowerment. Attendees and speakers at the conference hoped for bold statements on the future of crypto, seeing it as a movement towards freedom and empowerment. So his plan wasn't quite as detailed as what Saylor's was, which was kind of disappointing, seeing some of that.
You mean RFK changing to Saylor?
Yeah, no, Saylor's always just awesome, but
no, he knocks it out of the park. That's kind of funny, though. My biggest gripe with Trump on that, though, is, I mean, the only way that Bitcoin's going to strengthen the dollar is if the federal government actually gets its act together and stops printing money left and right. And under Trump, it was more the same.
Yeah. No,
so
absolutely.
I don't really believe him on that.
I completely agree with you. I mean, as much as he wants to blame Biden for all the inflation woes, that started with him also.
Yeah. I mean, Biden just accelerated it by giving cash to regular people. Mm-hmm. And they spend it immediately. Inflation, according to the Austrian economics, is just the growth of the money supply. But if you want to look at how bad inflation gets, you also look at the velocity that the money moves. And if you give it to poor people, it moves really fast.
Yeah.
Well, poor and middle class people, I should say.
Well, and it goes back to like inflating the money supply. Really, the biggest people that it hurts are the poor, right? Because they don't usually have the assets, which will accelerate in price as fast as, the inflation rises at the same time, typically.
Yes.
Whether it's real estate, fine art, whatever.
Yeah, they don't have any, like you said, they don't have assets, and they usually just have jobs. And now when the dollar becomes worth less and less, that means they have to stretch it that much further.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, and with interest rates the way they are and everything else, and that was one thing that RFK Jr., I think he really did a good job of just outlining what the potentials were there. He talked about, using stranded energy and making sure that we were harnessing it through Bitcoin mining. There was a lot of those types of discussions, which were really, it's well thought out. It's stuff you and I have talked about in the past. It was a well thought out discussion. And he basically said that he's not red, he's not blue, he's orange. Because that's how much he believes in Bitcoin.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to contrast, the three presidential candidates that we're talking about between, of course, the Republicans and the Democrats, and then a guy who got basically railroaded out of the Democrat Party when Biden was faltering, over the past year. And he was even claiming that he was faltering and everyone ignored him, and then they forced him out. But, RFK really is the only adult in the room.
Yeah. I had you, I would have, and I really would have had to think really long and hard about my vote had RFK been the Democratic nominee. And I kind of wish he would have been.
Oh, if he would have been, I would have voted for him.
Yeah.
It would have been no question.
Yeah, as much as I say it would have taken me a long time to think about that, no, I probably would have voted for him as well.
His party's full of crazies, but he's the sane one. I want to elevate that guy.
Yeah. It's so heartbreaking to see this, because at this point now, the media doesn't even give him a chance. But
well, no, they're trying to kneecap him even more, because he might be stealing votes from Kamala. And she's got a whole lot of things going against her. One being the most unpopular vice president in recorded history.
Yeah.
And being tied to the Biden administration, which is one of the most unpopular administrations ever. Though she might even be more unpopular than Biden, which is even crazier. And as bad as Biden is and how broken his brain is, what excuse does Kamala have for when she tries to communicate an idea and just starts cackling out of nowhere? And I don't know.
No, I agree. I mean, it's oddly terrifying. Now, the one thing that I did think was kind of interesting, and I mean, I know we've talked a lot about the political grandstanding between these two candidates, but one of the things I thought was interesting was that RFK Jr. would not say anything really negative about Trump. He kept on applauding him for what he believed he was going to talk about. He's like, well, I hope he really is, embracing this Bitcoin standard and that he will do these things. So I think even win or lose, I think RFK is going to have a seat at the Trump table.
Yeah, well, there's some rumors that Trump was trying to get him to pull out of the race and throw his support behind Trump and give him a position in his cabinet.
Yeah, and I think that's still a possibility. I mean, I would love to say, yeah, no, he should run. I will vote for him. He'll win. No, I don't know if he will or not.
Yeah. I think RFK has dang near zero chance unless something drastic happens, because people are way too committed in America to one party or the other. And third-party votes are always seen as throwing your vote away.
Yeah. So having said all that, between, what they announced over the weekend or between Friday and into the weekend, today, the Biden administration decided to start moving some of the $2 billion worth of the Silk Road Bitcoin that they had acquired, started moving that, which is part of that, 200,000 Bitcoin that the U.S. government currently has. And they want to move some of that to exchanges, apparently. It looks like they could try and sell some of it off before either candidate can get a chance to win.
Wow. Well, I tell you what, you think the price of Bitcoin's getting lower now. That's a good chunk to be sending to the exchanges.
Yeah, and I mean, who knows if it's just posturing or whatever it is, but I think that's part of the reason why we've seen this drawdown in price. I think part of it is we saw that resistance at 70,000, we got a rejection, and now I think we're just seeing the drawdown move because of some of the fear, because of what the U.S. government's doing. And one of the questions I wanted to pose to you too is that now we've got two presidential candidates, two of the three. Kamala, I think we mentioned this, is talking about resetting relations with some of the crypto exchanges, trying to extend an olive branch in a sense and not be so adversarial with them. But when you have two of the three presidential candidates basically announcing that they're going to do Bitcoin strategic reserve, do you think that's going to give other countries, do you think they're going to start having those discussions as well?
Yeah, I think there's going to be the discussion, but it's not going to happen until some major players start getting into this space, like for real, not discussions, but making substantial purchases. The smarter route to do it would be to do it on the back end, quietly before you announce you've done anything, right?
Right. Yeah. No, for sure. Because, I mean, then what's going to happen at that point is you're going to move the market, right?
Oh, yeah. You're going to be moving the market as it is. But if people find out what you're doing and you're buying all this Bitcoin, it's going to encourage the good vicious cycle. If you're a major Bitcoiner, it's going to kick off a frenzy where everyone's trying to get to the trough immediately, and the price could really go ballistic at that point.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. And I'm kind of curious to see how this is going to play out. Like, it's so crazy to think back. If you would have told me even 5 years ago, maybe 6, that presidential candidates would be discussing Bitcoin at large and like using it as a strategic reserve. I mean, right now it's still all talk till they put something in action. But if you would have told me that, I would have been like, no way. It's amazing how fast this has accelerated.
Yeah. Well, and maybe that goes to show that next presidential cycle, they're going to be arguing about how much we're going to have in the reserve instead of what we're going to,
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think that's
how much they're going to add to the reserve, I guess. Maybe that's the way I should put it.
Yeah, and I'd be curious to see what that actually ends up doing to, I'd be curious to see how our economy is doing at that point. Like if we actually do add it to a strategic reserve and maybe, I mean, like you said, it still depends on the Fed and how much money they print. But if they start to back the U.S. dollar by something that actually means something again, I don't know.
Well, I'll leave you with this. As far as something else, I didn't watch a whole lot from the Bitcoin conference, but I did watch one guy's speech. Check out Dave Smith's speech while he was there.
Okay.
So, get a chance.
Yeah. Well, and so the other question I'm going to ask you now, do we want to try and make it to Bitcoin Conference 2025 in Vegas? It's not going to be too far from us.
Think so. I would go.
I would go. I would totally go. I think that would be fun. I think it'd be interesting to kind of go to and be there, especially depending on what happens with this cycle this year. So,
yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing, depending on what the Bitcoin cycle is doing. I mean, if the price is going gangbusters, it might be impossible to get in. But if the price kind of does the crypto winter, I mean, it'd probably get in there pretty cheap.
Well, and I'm guessing that, I mean, we should be looking at, I still don't know when the peak will end, but I mean, Q1 2025, maybe,
I mean, realistically, like this last leg in the boom, I mean, it's lasted almost a year. I mean, at least 9 months at a time. So I don't know if we've really kicked off into that third that final rocket ship phase.
I don't think we have yet, but I could be wrong. I've held on to Bitcoin from highs before, so I could be the wrong person.
You've ridden many roller coasters, have you?
I have. I rode them all the way down till they drug me through tar, and then I was like, oh yeah, no. And then they ride me back up, and I'm all shiny and clean again. And then I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna go all the way down to the tar again. That's how that
it's
goes.
gonna keep going up. I just feel it.
I feel it. I feel it in my bones. But yeah, there wasn't a whole lot in the way of news. Otherwise, I think there was some announcement from, I think it was Loomis, had talked about wanting to actually create legislation for a Bitcoin reserve, but I don't think there's, especially in the current administration, there's no chance of that getting through. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that's kind of interesting that the government decided to go ahead and move Bitcoin after Trump announced that, and after RFK Jr. announced that. And then I wonder how many other countries are really starting to have some discussions, at least behind closed doors.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Is that showing your hand too soon?
Maybe.
And and I think the big thing for me is Trump just sounds like he's pandering when he said these things.
Oh yeah. No, he's quite the panderer. So yeah, it is what it is. I mean, he's been pretty successful as his career as a politician.
Yeah. So. That is true. But thank you guys for listening. If you do want to sign up for the newsletter, you can do that under the www.thebitbytepodcast.com and /sign up. And then we also have the deals page where you can actually get your discounts on, well, not discounts, but you can get your Ledger wallet or Trezor wallet. And just not Trezor, LPal. Man, I am messing up. LPal. Where you can get your actual hardware wallet through those links. You're buying directly from the manufacturer, and it just helps support the podcast. So,
yep. And I'm working on an article kind of talking about the potential interest rate cuts and what they could spell for the economy as a whole.
Yeah, and I think that would be kind of interesting, especially because we should be getting some of those meeting minutes here pretty soon.
Yep.
So, thank y'all for listening.
Alrighty. Bye.